Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Monday night live stream. Hope everybody's well. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend, and I hope your Monday has started this week off very well too. How is everybody? How are the folks enjoying a bank holiday today? Some of you will have had a nice little day off work. I hope the weather's been kind for you. I hope you've managed to kind of just enjoy yourself for a change instead of doing all the jobs around the house. Maybe getting a bit of hobby in, maybe just kind of having a day out. Let me know what you've been up to. Let me know what your plans have been for the rest of the week. And let me know what hobby you've been doing. Let me know if you've played any games. Have you got any plans of sort of purchases that you're looking forward to making? What are you looking forward to? Sure, he says, itching his nose. Of course I get an itchy nose when the live stream starts. Let's have a look in the chat and see which fine folks we've got in nice and early. Clyde Dashing was in nice and early on today as well. Nice to see you, Clyde. Super Pumpkin Man saying good morning to everybody earlier on today. Matt, he says, I'm going to answer this one. Yes. So for those of you who haven't seen the title, I'm sure you probably have. But the title is your view of the tabletop hobby skewed by what you see online? And as always, with these kind of topics, it's never quite as kind of clear-cut as the title suggests. And this is not meant to be negative either. It's meant to be just a kind of a self-reflection for me, but maybe a bit of self-reflection for you. But how does what we see online, be that YouTube videos, be that social media posts on either Twitter, is Twitter still called Twitter or is it just called X now? I still don't know. On X, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's people messaging you, like sending you pictures that they have seen online, all that kind of stuff. Does it influence you? Does it skew your view? Do you think you have a realistic view of the tabletop hobby and what it's really about? Or do you think you see the sugar-coated neon light version of what we all see online? Matt saying hello to everybody as well. RG saying, what a thought-provoking question. My gut says no, but my head says yes. And even at all, I hope you're all having a swell day. Nice to see you, RG. How are you doing? Type 40 TARDIS, nice to see you as well, mate. I hope the house buying isn't too stressful. I know you're seeing you going insane with it in a minute. Just remember, there is light at the end of the tunnel, mate. You will get through it. Ryan Barry, good evening to you, fella. How are you doing? Major Tom as well. Good evening, Ed. Nice to see you in, my friend. VJ, good morning, fella. Hope you're doing well too. Let's have a little look. Jez Hunt, hello, buddy. How's you doing? Haxan as well, saying hi to everyone. Tim Morton, good evening, Tim. Wayne Hayward as well. That says, as I scroll, it jumps off. Says happy bank holiday to everyone. Everyone that's having a bank holiday, I should say. Matt says it's been nice, chill day. Gotta admit, today's been kind of like that for me as well. What have I done today? We got up relatively early. My wife did a bit of a tip run. I've been kind of getting rid of some rubbish over the weekend, or certainly kind of boxing it up, ready to get rid of it. And then me and my wife, my little boy, went for a bit of breakfast, bit of fresh air this morning, and then I've had a bit of a lazy day, to be fair. It's been quite nice, kind of looking after the little fella and playing some video games and just kind of just chilling and hanging out today. Let's have a bit check down here. Super Pumpkin Man saying he's putting the last touches on his painting challenge submission. Don't forget, folks, Sunday coming is the deadline for the painting challenge. And remember, the theme was Alternative August. Jacob, howdy to you, mate. How you doing? Jessica saying he's been working all day solidly for weeks. Thank the gods. Looking forward to a day off on Thursday. Nice one, mate. A day off is never a bad thing. Fast Panda Gaming, hello mate, how you doing? He says, as a content creator, I am curious about this one. Yeah, like as I said before at the start, mate, this is not meant to be like a negative thing. It's more about to kind of put some parenthesis around this, shall we say. I think that the vast majority of people's ideas about the hobby now are definitely skewed by what we see online, be it good or be it bad, or be it positive or be it negative. I think it skews what we think the hobby is these days. And from a battle report point of view, I don't think it's necessarily kind of I don't think that's necessarily a good or a bad thing in that respect, but I think there are other things, the things around painting, things about collecting, things about just force feeding information into people, I think it kind of skews people's opinions, and that's the jumping off point I think where I'll be coming from anyway. Cardos Dogforge, good evening to you, mate. How are you doing? Mutton Chops is saying good evening as all. He's painting a Yeti for Friday when his D&D group ventures into the mountains. Well, I hope none of them are watching, mate, because I think they'll know what they're up against now. Andrew Cook says hello from the other Down Under. The other one is if Australia's Down Under, is the other Down Under back in the UK? Or do you mean New Zealand? Game Line says, yes, oftentimes I find that either gameplay or production quality is not quite as good as when there's a polished script or someone has a lot of time to really delve into the rules. I'm not necessarily criticising people's content quality or the amount of time they put into it. I'm meaning more about how we hobby as individuals who just like to hobby. I think that's changed over time, and it's been influenced by what we see online, and that's the bit I'll kind of come back to. But I'm certainly not kind of calling anybody out saying this is an example of good stuff or this is an example of bad stuff or anything like that. Let's have a little look. Tim saying, just finished Oddballs Sherman from Bolt Action. Nice one, mate. Good evening, Peter Koeman. How are you, fella? And Table Salt Game says, what's up, all the tabletop enthusiasts? It's your boy, Rob. Nice to see you, Rob. How are you doing? Type 40 TARDIS has said, other than just chilling, waiting for Luna 2nd edition start of the ship, I really want to get into this game. I didn't realise the 2nd edition was shipping, mate. I knew that they were talking about a 2nd edition or an updated version of Don't Look Back. I always want to say Don't Look Back in anger. Too much Oasis. I think that's the problem with that one. But I hadn't realised Luna was getting an update as well. Ed saying he's back from a week on the North Somerset coast. Oh, sounds nice, mate. He's just painting some random bits to get his eye back in. It's amazing how, like, after a bit of a break, it can definitely affect you. And I'm finding at the minute, I'm struggling to get back to painting and get enthusiastic about painting, because I think my eyesight's going a bit. I think I'm just getting old, and I've got some kind of like magnifying kind of sort of lens things that I use, and they work really well. Excuse me. But they're not the most comfortable on my nose, and they kind of put a bit of pressure on the side of my head, and I get a little bit of a kind of like a pressure headache if I've been wearing them for too long. And I also get a little bit of a headache because I think with the lens things, they're not like glasses. They're slightly further forward from your face, so you see the peripheral of like everything in normal sort of focus. And then there's the focus of these when you're kind of the bit where you're painting. So I think I might just need to get my eyes checked and get some glasses. But I'm finding that I'm not enjoying painting because I really feel like my kind of it's like a constant feeling of feeling tired. So I think I could do with going and getting my eyes checked, I think. Peter saying he's assembling some nulls for Frostgrave right now, trying a proper kit bash using all the sprues from all the different boxes they put out. That is a proper kit bash, mate. VJ says he's made Dan's coming over tomorrow for a game day, going to try and get 3 different board games to the table as well as beers. Sounds like a good day to me, mate. Colin Wakeland, good evening to you, sir. Jess is saying the other Down Under is that hell. It could be, even Down Under from Down Under. Gameline says, yeah, I think it's great to have the higher production content, just saying that my experience often doesn't shine as much when I'm playing as when I watch the content. Let me just clarify I'm getting this right. Are you saying when you see high production content online, it kind of shows the game off in a better light than it physically is when you get it to the tabletop? Is that what you mean? Jez is saying, gaming gossip. What's going on with Broken Anvil? I've not heard, mate. Somebody mentioned something, I think it was, maybe it was last week's stream, but I'd completely forgotten about the comment, and I couldn't even think who Broken Anvil were until I remembered they were the company that was giving Privateer Press a bit of grief about the 3D printing when they first started doing that, and it's the company that did, is it Rivenstone? I seem to remember the name, I think it might be. Haxon said he spent the weekend and today getting back into playing Sword and Sorcery Immortal Souls and getting it all painted. He's only had it for about 3 years. Took several hours to remember all the rules. Isn't that always the case when you kind of go back and play something you haven't played in a while? You remember bits of the rules and then you remember what you think of the rules, but they're actually rules of other games that you've played. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to get back into them. Martin, slip inside the eye of my mind. I'm going to have to don't look back in anger at the back of my head for the rest of the evening. Exactly, mate. So when I think about Don't Look Back, which is the Black Side Studios game, the kind of like the horror game, the slasher kind of 80s slasher type thing, I always want to say Don't Look Back in anger. Tizzy Brain Drain saying, wish we had a holiday today, but we have to wait until next. Yeah, bank holiday in the UK today. Is this the I think this is the last. Is this the last bank holiday of the year? August bank holiday? I think it might be actually. Where are we up to here? RG saying, I always have to go back to something my old man said. Comparison is the thief of joy. 100%, mate. I think people see too many perceived perfect setups, and that has a detrimental effect on their enjoyment. That's kind of, I think, where I'm gonna end up kind of kicking off from. I think, mate. Ed saying good glasses made all the difference to me. Yeah, I think it's that, mate. I think it's just an age thing. It's just like I spend a lot of time looking at screens. I spend a lot of time kind of looking at my phone, looking at my laptop, that kind of thing. And then like my eyes don't sort of adjust like sort of the way they used to. So I think my kind of like my longer range vision isn't perfect, but it's good enough for everything I need kind of thing. And I think my close-up vision isn't perfect, but it's good enough for 99% of what I need. So like things like reading a book or kind of like sort of watching a screen or anything like that, I don't have any issues. But as soon as I'm trying to focus on very small things, I think they're just not as sharp as they used to be. And I'm starting to notice it. It's like I said before, it's as if you're a bit tired and your eyes are a bit sort of glassy a little bit. I think that's all it is really. Cardos is in, got our rooms for Adepticon, ready for a few days of gaming, drinking and friends. Hope some of you will be there. I always forget about kind of planning Adepticon this far out. I should really have a look at that kind of stuff. Matt says, I need to have my... Whoa, I just jumped off there. Matt says, need to have my minis at a certain distance from my nose before they come into focus, which makes it very hard to do fine detail. It's not even so much the fine detail now, mate. I think it's just like... It's just comfortably seeing, like... It's like seeing the detail as opposed to the fine detail, if you like. Jess is saying, get a magnifying lamp. Take half an hour to get used to it. I used to have one, mate, and I never ever got used to it. That weird, I never got used to kind of the judging sort of depth perception, which is why I went to the headset stuff. Because if you're looking through both eyes kind of thing with the magnification, like you kind of get used to the depth perception, but with a magnifying glass, and I never really ever sort of got used to it. Maybe I'll go back and try it. I've still got a magnifying glass, like a lamp thing with one, and I've got a good lamp, if you like, so you can kind of see here this big, like, sort of nice and bright kind of thing. So it's not like I'm kind of painting in any kind of dark light or anything like that. I've got plenty of... Oh, just switch it on again. I've got plenty of good kind of like natural sort of daylight lamp. And there's a window there, to be fair. It's the same during the day as well. So let's have a little look here. RG saying he spent the day painting terrain and playing Mysterium with the family. Nice one. And Gameline saying, yeah, that's correct. Okay, I understand what you mean now, mate. And Andrew saying, yeah, it is New Zealand, it's not hell. Samir Patel, hello to you, mate. He's saying hello to the hobby squad. And Jess is saying, or rather, haven't done Rivenstone apparently. Ah, okay. So he says, yeah, I broke an handful of the company that drove everyone nuts with Rivenstone. Yeah, they certainly kind of ploughed plenty of money into promoting it. Everybody in their dog, I think, was promoting that at one point in time. Donald Cowie, good evening, Donald. He says, I do think channels like Art of War heard 40k at club level, as don't see heavy, fluffy armies. It's just the same list with different colours on it. So I'm not familiar with Art of War, Donald. So when you're saying you don't see heavy, fluffy armies, do you mean Art of War do the fluffy armies, and that at your club it's the same lists with different colours on it? Or are you saying that when they make their videos, it's the same list with different colours on it, and at your club they're doing more kind of fluffy stuff. Let me know which one you're in, because I'm not familiar with Art of War. Samir says he worked on his entry for the monthly challenge this weekend. Andy, I'll try not to get it to you last minute this time. Don't worry, mate. As long as you get it in, that's the way to do it. And yeah, Donald said it's the last bank holiday until Christmas and New Year. Yeah, I thought it was, yeah. Samir says, like a fine wine, our eyes age over time. Sadly, unlike a fine wine, they age the opposite way. Yeah, they certainly don't get better. I mean, I've managed to kind of to get to this age without needing glasses, so there you go. And I think if I didn't kind of paint miniatures, like I don't think I'd really notice it, because like I say, looking at my phone, reading a book, reading a newspaper, reading small print, like I can see it fine. I don't really have an issue. But it's just when I'm trying to just get them miniatures. So I think I might just need to get some kind of like reading glasses with a little bit of magnification, maybe like 1.5 or 2 times or something like that. I just get some cheap reading glasses or something like that. Maybe take a miniature to the shop with me and just like, you know, just yeah, that looks about right. Let's have a little look here. Fiji saying exactly, they've gone tits up and taken everyone's cash and run. Have they really? Given all the sponsored content that was produced during the Kickstarter, I'm not surprised they burnt cash like a forest fire. Ooh, interesting. Luke Pryor, good evening, mate. How are you doing? He's saying, how's the world treating everyone? Tony Howell, good evening to you as well, fella. He's saying, evening, you lovely gits and gals. It's about comparing your work to that of others. Join me in BlackJack Legacy Discord. I couldn't give a shit about stupid good painting anymore. I love seeing painted and having enjoyed the journey. You know what, mate? There's a lot to be said about that. And that's kind of a little bit of some of the context of kind of what's kind of kicked this idea off. Really, it definitely is about kind of comparison and about comparing your work to others and things, and even just in my own personal hobby, because it's become my job. I think my view of what the hobby is has changed, and I feel like I'm having a bit of reflection and kind of sort of self-reflection and looking back upon what is hobby and what is work and all that kind of stuff. We'll come to it anyway. We'll come to it. Yeah, Donald is saying, so prescription windscreen, then yeah, a bit, mate. Tony's saying, Matt's saying, sounds like you need a pair of reading glasses at the very least. I think so, mate. Yeah, I had to get a pair myself just to be able to read small text, even though I'm very short-sighted. And Ed saying he tried a magnifying lamp and couldn't adapt. Yeah, I couldn't either, mate. I don't know why. Maybe it's just some people can, some people can't. But with a magnifying lamp, I always felt like I wanted to get it closer to the lamp, but then the lamp got in the way of the brush. Where when I wore the headset type thing, it basically, like, I could see the miniature perfect, but just maybe they're just a cheap pair, but like they put pressure on my nose and they put pressure on the sides of my head, and I start to get a bit of a headache from them. And I don't know if the headache's from the pressure of like kind of pushing on my head, or if it's just the weird sensation of seeing things at 2 different focal lengths. RG saying he's waiting for Carl to post the reprint of 7TV, and then he can have some different fun. Nice one, mate. Spylos, I think there's a good breadth of differing channels so that you can tailor your experience these days. There is, but I think even the really enjoyable stuff, and as I said before, this is not really about the content. I think what's happened, I'll keep it until we talk about it, because I like to kind of like leave it a little bit just to let folks kind of warm up and get in the chat. So we'll probably start the main topic about 9:30. So in about 10 minutes or something like that. But it's nice to get your thoughts. It's nice to get, like, because your thoughts and opinions are as valid, if not more valid than mine. Because maybe I'm skewed by doing this. Because this is my job, maybe my thoughts and ideas are skewed as well. So I always like to hear what everyone else has to say. But it also kind of gives me a bit of back and forth as well, to be able to respond to things or to be able to clarify things. It's stuff that you can't really do in like a normal video. You basically, when you make a normal video, I tend to script my stuff just so I don't ramble, as I do on a Monday. But I like to, like, I tend to kind of think about what points I want to get over, try and make them entertaining, he says, and then basically kind of like record the video. But the problem is if anybody misunderstands you, or they take something the wrong way, or I haven't kind of put anything in a certain context, or it's taken out of context, it's difficult to kind of to clarify that, where when we're sitting chatting on a live stream, this is perfect for that stuff. VJ saying now his hobby room's all set up. He's hoping to get back into some painting later this week. Hope the pick in the Discord didn't make everyone too jealous. It's nice to have a bit of space, man. I must admit, mate, when you haven't had, when you haven't had like kind of like a proper like man cave, he says in inverted commas, or like a hobby space, it's so nice to have it. Super Punkin Man saying, so I figured out what I'd be painting for October's challenge, which will be a follow-up to last year's submission. I don't even know what the subject is yet, mate. And we haven't even done September's. So there you go. Matt says the comparison issue is real. It can get real off-putting when you see someone produce a beautiful mini and you're still trying to paint within the lines. I think there's a balance to that, because just because somebody can paint fantastically well, they have every right to show off the work that they've done, and I'm sure that they're rightly proud of it too. And it's always nice to see beautifully painted stuff, and it's always nice to kind of to see work other people do. And I think there's a fine line between inspirational and almost off-putting, and that's not the fault of the painter. Sometimes some channels kind of just go like super simple way to paint this, and then they kind of pull out this golden demon winning kind of miniature type thing, and go, well, it's easy, you just put the paint in the right places, you know, like, what do you mean you don't know how to do it? That's when it starts to become a little bit kind of frustrating, I think. Peter says, I do all my hobbying with an Optivisor, never went back after I got it. I don't even know what kind of thing I've got made, but like I say, it kind of gives me a bit of a headache type thing. Samir's saying, well said, Tony. The reality is not all of us can be pro painters. However, we can all be painters and just paint to our level of enjoyment. 100%, mate. Cleo, good evening. He's saying, have I missed all the fun again? No, we're saying hello to everybody, buddy. I said I would start about another 5 or 7 minutes, something like that. We'll start the main topic type stuff and we'll chat through. But it's nice to catch up on the chat, get some of your thoughts and stuff, see what everybody's been up to. Welcome all the regulars. And also welcome any newcomers as well, of course. Spiderlord saying, I have a pair of magnifiers that are quite unlike the usual ones, much lighter and more comfortable. These are pretty light, mate, the ones I've got, but I think either I've got a big head or they just kind of put a bit of pressure on, I think. Tony says, personally, I want to promote what the model rail lot do and hand the skills down without judgment. The mini lot get really snobbish about cheating. It isn't. Use every tool in the craft box. It's interesting you say that, mate. I'm not that familiar with the kind of model railway crowd. But I guess because there's not a competitive element, or none that I'm aware of, I don't think there's a competitive element to like model railways. Like, it's not like you go to a model railway tournament or you enter your model railway setup in a setup wars type golden demon type thing. I think everybody's setup is personal to them. It's individual to them. They basically build it in the space that they've got with the finances that they've got available, and kind of what their inspiration is. And I think also because it takes so long to do a model railway setup, it's not something that you kind of like, it's one of them things like it's never finished. You're constantly kind of tinkering with it and adding it and upgrading things, where I think when it comes to painting, there's an idea of, I've painted it, it's done, move on. I've painted it, it's done, move on. Paint an army. It's like a constant, like, it's like, I was going to say it's like a train, but it doesn't really go with the reference, does it? It's just a constant hamster wheel of like more. Where I feel like model railway stuff is much more a kind of like just like a gradual, like the hobby is the building of it, not the completing of it. Almost, I think that's kind of maybe the way to do it. Or the way to think of it anyway. Let's have a look. Spiderlord saying I'll have to post them in the group. Yeah, please do, mate. Donald says, so Art of War is 40k team then that win most single GT events in the USA. Okay, mate. For example, the Black Templar list, which had no Crusade squads, is Marine copy list NHL. Okay, so the Art of War basically are just bringing competitive lists, and there's not really any kind of theme to it. They're essentially painting a similar list, different colours to kind of go, this is a Black Templar army, this is a Space Wolf army, or whatever it is. VG says the rambling's the best part. The one thing, mate, is you'll never take the rambling out of me, that's for sure. Clyde says, tell me your context, Andy, so I can more easily take it out of it, so you know your viewership ratings. Oh, I know what my ratings are like, mate. Haxan says, I wear contact lenses at work and on my motorbike, but now I have to wear reading glasses for text. At home I wear glasses, but I take them off for detail work. Yeah, I think it would be one of those things where I wear them purely for painting and nothing else, really. Tony says, Byron's proved that dry brush isn't just an introduction level technique. Yeah, 100%, mate. I would agree. The only thing I would say is that in one breath, Byron and Artis Opus are saying dry brushing can produce very high level stuff, which I agree with. On the other hand, they're saying, but you can only achieve it with these really, really expensive brushes. So there's a little bit of kind of like, a little bit with about it. Fast Panda saying, in our battle reports we have fully painted armies with very little proxying and a good quantity of fully painted scenery. When I see Infinity being played out and about, I see unpainted armies and cardboard scenery. This, folks, is fine, just play. And in that context, mate, is a lot of what I was kind of getting at as well, and I will get onto soon, about what we see online versus what we see in reality. In reality, most people are not playing with fully painted armies, especially at bigger points levels. They're not necessarily playing with all official models. They're not playing with amazing like terrain layouts and stuff. Some people are, and it takes a long time to get to that point. But I think there's a perception, I think, that that is the only way to play because that's what we see online. And I guess purely from an entertainment point of view, we maybe expect to see it online. Like, you don't get a lot of people doing battle reports online with like half painted armies, for example. And there's technical reasons for that. Like, it's not easy to see what the different models are and things, and you want it to look attractive and well presented and stuff. But I think it also kind of skews the of like this idea of like everybody plays with painted armies. My God, like I shouldn't play with painted minis. I shouldn't play with unpainted minis. Or like if I'm going to go to this club for the first time, everybody's going to expect me to be kind of fully painted type thing. Super Punk Man saying, always thinking ahead, far ahead, regardless of what might change, just adapt with it or not. Yeah, Matt saying, don't get me wrong, I don't hate people for the minis they paint. It's entirely my own issue with my own skill sets or lack of. I don't necessarily think it's even like a self-blame thing, mate. I think it can be demoralising to see things that you personally think at this stage, because that's not to say that you can't get better and can't get to that stage, but at this stage where you are, you feel like you've kind of like, and I don't mean you, I mean the universal you. You've put in a lot of hard work. You can see that you've really improved from where you were, from the first miniature you painted to the miniatures that you're painting today, and then you see what other people are achieving, and you just go, oh my God, I'm never going to get to that. Why am I even bothering, kind of thing. So I think it can be demoralising at times. Mike Pierce said, I made it. Nice to see you, Mike. How you doing, man? Type 40 Torres says, a friend just sent me a link to a fine detail brush with an LED camera attached so you can stream it to your tablet and see everything zoomed in as you paint. I saw somebody did a video with that recently, and who was it? I'm trying to think if it was it Pete the Wargamer? Or was it, oh no, it might not have been, it might have been a female I'd seen, I forget her name now. But essentially she basically just said that it was even harder than trying to paint through a magnifying glass. It was really like the kind of the your hand moves way too much. So essentially what you're doing is you're just moving a camera around. What you really want is the fixed camera, and kind of, which is essentially what a magnifying glass is, I suppose. Nice idea, but I think they're really difficult to actually use. RG saying, my biggest issue with the goggles is remembering to change the batteries. It gets darker and darker, and when I change the batteries, I think, wow, that's bright. And then I see all the cock-ups. The ones I've got have got rechargeable, like a USB thing in them with like a tiny little light in the front. But to be fair, I don't even switch it on because the light I use is kind of, it's bright enough without it. Yeah, Ed saying model railways are a lifestyle, not a hobby. I guess you could say, would you... I mean, I assume it is still a hobby. A hobby, I would imagine, by definition, without kind of looking it up in the dictionary, a hobby by definition is something that you do for fun, like in your spare time, to basically just to relax, unwind, to have something outside of kind of day-to-day life type thing. So I would guess that working on a model railway is still a hobby by the definition of the word. But yeah, I can imagine it's kind of all consuming. But then I guess our hobby is kind of all consuming as well at times. So yeah. Matt said it would be interesting to see what the average non-YouTube battlefield actually looks like. It's kind of where I'm getting to, mate. Yeah, I'll read a couple more comments and then I'll kind of get on to the main topic. Mike saying GW set the rule of never playing with unpainted minis long ago. I don't think they've set it as a rule, mate. I think it's just, it might be a rule in their stores or in their tournaments. And I guess that's because what they don't want to do is, as a business, they're doing it from a business point of view. First of all, they want to sell minis. Second of all, they want people to paint them to show them off. Because if they say, or you don't have to paint your miniatures, then all of a sudden they've set this kind of benchmark of like, well, now nobody paints the miniatures. Like, I remember playing War Machine in tournaments a long time ago, and the rule was you don't have to have your models painted. And it was surprising how many tournaments you would go to where a lot of the armies were completely unpainted. Very, very few people had fully painted armies when it came to like War Machine and stuff. And I think that's because the company sets the tone of it's acceptable to not paint your miniatures. And of course, in your own free time or whatever it is. But if you're wanting to show something off and try and get people interested in it, and this comes back to kind of YouTube stuff as well, I think having them painted it is more visually, aesthetically pleasing. Let's have a little look here. Super Pumpkin Man saying, oddly enough, due to the weirdly large number of painters and commissioned painters, most people in my city, most 40k and AOS players have painted armies, even a few I did myself. Commission painting is something you don't hear a lot of in the UK so much. Like, I don't think many people, like, unless they're playing in tournaments and stuff like that, they're tournament players who just don't enjoy painting. Most people don't really pay other people to paint their stuff. I think it's far less common than it maybe is in the States. Samir saying, hobby requires time, plain and simple. I've been wargaming since '89 and my collection is nowhere near that of so many others, but it's my collection and I love it as it is. I think that's a good point to kind of dive into the main topic. So as I said before, that the chat for tonight is your view of the tabletop hobby skewed by what you see online? And the context for this is I've been kind of doing some self-reflecting over these kind of summer holidays where I've had a bit of time away from the hobby while I was on holiday. I've been very, very short on time when it comes to actually sort of the YouTube side of things. I'm looking after my little boy while he's on his 6 weeks holidays. My wife's kind of working full time and she's working away, like she's been working away most weeks since we got back and stuff off holiday, and it's not really leaving me any time. However, like that's fair enough. But it's that kind of aside, that time away has kind of made me think really about what really is the hobby, because I think what we see online these days is not really what the hobby is for most people. So to put this into some context, when I first started watching like sort of hobby stuff on YouTube, most videos that we saw online, most YouTube channels, when people were starting out with YouTube channels, when I started mine with no subscribers and no videos and all that kind of stuff, was an extension of what you would call kind of message forums and stuff like that, where people would post a video to show what they'd been up to, or I've been painting this week. Like, people didn't really post photos online as much, I would suggest. They might have done in like the odd, like sort of like I say, like forums and stuff like that. But people, when camera phones started to become relatively decent, people started posting videos of, this is what I've been painting, here's my army so far. They might even do a bit of a kind of a tutorial type thing, but it wasn't highly produced. It was literally kind of holding a phone or holding a GoPro or something and going, so I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this kind of thing. It was pretty straightforward. And YouTube, from a hobby perspective, from a tabletop hobby perspective, was very much an extension of people's hobbies. And then I think as it grew in popularity, and as Games Workshop kind of sort of started to climb it in their sort of in their status and stuff like that, as well as the company of the size that they become now, things started to get a little bit more polished, and some people started to kind of come into the YouTube arena, if you like, with a bit more of a professional spin on it. Eventually you started to get things like Play on Tabletop, who basically kind of came in with their first video, really highly kind of high production values, really polished, multiple cameras, cameramen, people playing, really nicely edited. And I'm not suggesting like that's a bad thing. It was made from an entertainment point of view, and as the popularity of Games Workshop grew, the popularity of that kind of video grew, and people like Tabletop Titans, and they kind of sort of moved on leaps and bounds with the kind of production quality they did. People started getting studio setups and really kind of big fancy areas. Look, mini wargaming kind of grew out the back of a shop, and now they've got their big kind of studio and everything else. And so things moved on a little bit. Painting tutorials became much more popular, but instead of it just being kind of your average painter who was basically painting the miniatures and trying to teach people a few little sort of like sneaky tips and tricks, or I found this works really well, or kind of how to do something quickly or more simply, even the painting tutorials became very cinematic and became very like overproduced, and the level of the painters, if you like, kind of increased, and it almost became a case of where the painters that most people watch are at a very high level, the Angel Heraldes and people like that. And so I think expectations of what a game looks like when it's being played is something like kind of like, oh, when I'm interested in Warhammer, I go and watch it. Like, I look for the most popular Warhammer battle reports online. I find these videos with hundreds of thousands of views, and then all of a sudden, that's what I think. That's what I think gameplay should look like. So in that case, when I collect my miniatures, I need to paint to that standard, and I need to have a table that looks like that. And I think people come into the hobby a little bit now, maybe with a bit of a misconstrued idea of what it's like. And I think online presence, and I'm here to be shot down as well. I'm one of those people making YouTube videos. I think it's kind of changed the perception. I think it's changed the opinions. There is an opinion now that everybody's following the latest meta. There's an opinion now that basically you have to buy everything that comes out, because all of your favorite YouTube channels that are basically supporting the game that you're interested in are showing you all the new stuff that comes out, almost like an extension of the marketing for something like Games Workshop or other companies. And I'm there to be shot down in this as well, because I think my viewpoint is skewed and changed over time. I think that the level of painting that people expect, people get frustrated at the fact that they can't paint fast enough, or they can't paint well enough, or they can't paint to the standard that other people do. And I think they get a little bit disheartened by that. And I think they forget that, again, this is a hobby. And as I have said many, many times, you don't have to be good at something for it to be your hobby. You just need to be able to enjoy it. The sort of the be all and end all of a hobby is, do I get enjoyment from this? It's not about, am I the best? It's not about how do I compare to everybody else. It's about, do I have fun doing this? And the enjoyment of the hobby shouldn't necessarily come from the end point of what have I achieved necessarily. Some of it should come from the process, from the collecting of an army, from the researching about the army, from the bit downtime and the mental kind of peace of just sitting painting, from the fun of playing the games with friends or meeting new people. Maybe if you're into tournament play, it might be kind of challenging yourself to get better at the game. It might be just going to meet new people. It might be going to play against armies you never get to play against. It might be just kind of traveling around and going to new places because you don't get to do that in your day-to-day life. So I just think that my opinion is the fact that I think production values, qualities, like even me sitting here like this with paint surrounded by me and kind of, the cameras and the microphones and all this kind of stuff, like it gives an unrealistic view of like, well, if you haven't got a hobby room like this with like hundreds and hundreds of paints, then maybe you're doing it wrong. You need to up your game kind of thing. Like even this kind of adds to that kind of facade of this is what the hobby's about. So I guess I want to just kind of put that out there, see what your thoughts are. Do you think it's a positive thing? Do you think it's a negative thing? Does it not really bother you? Have you not really thought about it? Do you think it affects you if you're somebody that's new to the hobby? Do you think it affects how you think of things? Do you think that it makes you feel like you have to buy all of the new things that come out now, where in the past, if you weren't watching stuff online, maybe you wouldn't have even known about 90% of the things that come out. You would just buy the things that you kind of liked or whatever. What do you think? Let's kind of set the ball rolling, and we'll keep revisiting the chat as we go through the night. But that's kind of my context, really. Because one thing I was watching today was Ash Barker's just done a video recently about he's kind of updating his studio and stuff. And I urge you to go and watch it. Ash Barker from Guerrilla Miniature Games. I don't know the guy. We've never really spoken. We had a very, very brief email exchange a long time ago when I was trying to kind of get him to like film to record like a podcast episode together kind of thing when I was doing my podcast stuff for my Patreons, and it never really came to fruition. It kind of fizzled out, the conversation. So I don't know the guy, but he's a big inspiration in me doing what I do. The fact that he's a guy that works on his own, the fact that he's basically doing it full time, the fact that he's an absolute grafter, the fact that he covers the stuff that he enjoys as well as the more popular stuff, and doesn't necessarily kind of always go down that clickbaity kind of, the shock horror kind of thumbnails and the clickbait titles and that kind of stuff. He's a big inspiration for me doing what I do, and if I ever meet the guy, I'd shake his hand and tell him that. But I think he's going through a few kind of struggles and things at the minute in terms of financially to an extent, but some of it brought on because the space that he basically he used to rent out some of his space to a kind of a third party, and they're no longer renting that space now, so financially he's in a little bit of trouble with that kind of stuff. But it's made him reassess what he does, and he's basically saying that like I'm not doing the stuff that I enjoy anymore. I'm doing the stuff that I think people want to watch rather than what I want to do. And I think if I get this bigger studio area, it means I can do all the things I can't do now. And there is an element of actually like he's grown to quite a big size, something like 115,000 subscribers. He's got about 400 Patreons. He's grown to that with the space that he had. And whilst it's always nice to have more space, does he really need it? I guess is the question I'm asking, kind of thing. But of course, if somebody said to me, I've got a lovely big like sort of factory space for you, I would snap the hand off. I would love to have more space. It's quite demoralizing in times to work in an area that's kind of like the size of like a 10 foot by 10 foot room kind of thing, and you're the only person you see from day to day. So I get the idea of having a bit more space and a bit of daylight and stuff like that. But it made me think, because I've been trying to reassess my stuff, hearing him talking about how he's reassessing what he does. I think sometimes we can get caught up in the online world of the hobby and think that that's really what the hobby is, and that actually, like, even I just forget just to play games now. Like I've not even played a game of Shatterpoint yet because I haven't painted my miniatures, and like that's madness, really. Like, they're all built. The terrain's all painted. I've painted one of the miniatures. I should be just playing the game, and I haven't, because in my head I'm like, well, I need to have everything painted before I kind of get this to the table, and that's just crazy. Let's have a little look at the chat and stuff. Jess is saying, fully painted minis, fully textured terrain battlefields are ideal, but that's not where the fun of the game is. It's an aspirational thing, but not a necessity. And therein, I think, lies kind of part of what I'm saying, is that I think it's starting to, and maybe it's just me. Maybe it's me that it's kind of like it's affecting. But I guess that's the question. Do other people feel that like they don't live up to the standard kind of thing? Vijay saying his father-in-law does model real stuff, and I can definitely agree. People tend to get pretty consumed by it, but that's no different to mini games or card games. Yeah, I agree, mate. Let's have a little look here. Where we? Oh, wow, that's just jumped ahead. VJ, thank you very much, mate. He says, grab yourself a couple of cold ones for Wednesday. I'll have to put them on ice, mate, as it is, because I've got my operation on Thursday, and I can't drink for a week before my operation anyway. So I won't be having anything on Wednesday, mate. Wow, that's jumped ahead. Oh, there. Ed saying GW stores don't insist on painted minis these days. Events do, though. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, mate. I've never played in a GW store. But my assumption was maybe they like to see painted minis on the table. But I know that certainly if you play at GW's like games at Warhammer World, they certainly specify it in their packs. But then most tournament organisers specify it in their packs now as well. Spylord saying, one of the biggest lessons I had to learn was to paint it to a standard that I was happy with, but didn't take the hours upon hours that the top painters put in. I don't have enough time left for that. It's surprising, isn't it? It's a funny one. It's a funny one. We never really. I think I went through a phase where I was definitely I'd found a level I was happy with, and somehow I managed. I've kind of gotten out of that, and I feel like I'm supposed to be pushing myself, and I think I've forgotten really like that. Sometimes good enough's good enough. I think I know I can paint better, and so sometimes I probably beat myself up about not painting to that standard every time, kind of thing. Clyde as well, thank you very much for the super chat as well. I don't know why it hasn't popped up on the screen yet, mate. It might do. This is a mild warmish one, German style. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me get back a little bit and try and find out where this chat is, because this is jumping around all over. I love the fact we've got loads of chat coming in, by the way. Thank you very much, but I'm just having to try and go back and try and find it. Yeah, Samir saying, I put the time into painting because painted armies just makes the game more fun. There we go, Clyde. Thank you very much. I knew it would come up eventually. Type 40 Tard is saying, I find myself gravitating more and more towards smaller scale skirmish and micro skirmish games like Riot Quest, Rumble Slam and Luna, even Demon Ship. Samir saying, still is, I find myself being more selective about what I'm looking for and to stay inspired. Like I say, I'm there to be shot down as well. I think the fact that the stuff that I like to cover wouldn't work if I only covered one kind of game or two kind of games. And so I've always tried to talk about the variety of stuff that's out there outside of the big 40k type thing or big Games Workshop stuff. The problem is then I basically go, look everyone, blah, here's everything, and maybe it's difficult for people to to watch and to keep up with and go, like, bloody hell, he's talking about this week, and next week it's going to be about that, and then last week it was something else. And so I'm concerned that not only does that give a false impression, as if it almost as if it's like a slow sell to everything else, but also it affects my hobby as well. It affects what I do. Somebody is saying narrative is where the sweet spot is. Create a story and make lifelong memories with your friends. Back in the day, it wasn't about the meta, it was about coming together and having a great time. I think again there's another thing though, is VJ doing the super chatter battle now. I like that. Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. I think for some people, narrative is the way to go. For other people, I think like competitive is the way to go. But I think because of the way things are portrayed online, we think that competitive is either the way to play, or we think it is the dominant way to play, and I don't think either of those things are the case. But I think it does give a skewed perception, as we're chatting about, really. Jez is saying the urge to try to hit a perfect game like that must be well stressful for people. Yeah, I think it might be, mate. Morning, Camo. How are you doing? Nice to see you. George, nice to see you as well, mate. He's saying totally agree, Andy. Enjoyment is key. Yeah, it's 100% is always about. It should always be about fun and about enjoyment, and anything else is a bonus. Like if you win, so much the better, kind of thing. Now, for some people, winning is their enjoyment, and that's great as long as they play against other people who get their enjoyment from the kind of the competitive challenge. That's fine. Ed saying it's not just wargaming. New people coming into RPGs expect their game to be Critical Role. Really, really good point, Ed. And I think there's been a lot kind of talked about that as well. Is that most people games of D&D isn't this kind of like sort of master crafted storytellers with their voice actors and all that kind of stuff. Like if you've got a good DM or GM, and people are willing to just let their hair down a bit and have fun, I think Dungeons and Dragons is fantastic, or other RPGs are absolutely fantastic. But I think Critical Role is the movie version. It's the entertainment version of it. It's not D&D in the same way that going to watch kind of like sort of Man City versus Real Madrid is not what would happen if you went and kicked the ball about on a local field with a couple of mates, kind of thing. Yeah, VG is saying hobby envy is real. Oh, he says, I remember as a kid with no cash, I wanted to play Napoleonic sea battles. Some blue paint, some red paint, different sizes of squares and balsa wood, and some WRG rules. My mates and I were happy as pigs. Do you know what? I think there's an element of that as well, mate. I think we've forgotten the art necessarily of doing it on the cheap and that as well. Jez is saying he's a good lad, Ash. Hope he sorts his stuff out. Yeah, like I say, mate, he's been a massive inspiration to me, and I probably wouldn't have even sort of went down the path I've gone down if it wasn't for the fact that I saw somebody else out there kind of trying to make it work. Like me and Ash are never going to make the same kind of content. He does battle report after battle report after battle report. He paints like an absolute kind of like mystical ninja. The speed that he manages to churn stuff out at a standard that I'd be more than happy with on my tabletop. It's a level above what I paint to. But I prefer to kind of sit and rabbit on really a little bit and natter on, and he obviously enjoys doing those battle reports. So we're never going to make the same content, but he's definitely inspirational in terms of his output and just the fact that he does what he does. Matt says something like practicing mindfulness while painting helps with perfectionism as an issue. Sitting there just focused on the moment rather than on what you think it should be. Matt, I started in this hobby probably about maybe about 15 years ago or something like that. Maybe slightly before that. I forget exactly when it was now. But I started purely just to paint, just to switch off, turn my brain off, sit and paint miniatures and just kind of put some music on, or put a film on in the background or something like that. I wasn't really listening to podcasts and stuff back then. I would maybe put like a DVD on before the days of Netflix and all that kind of stuff. Just put something on in the background and just sit and paint for relaxation. I had no intentions of ever playing games. I was painting like Warhammer miniatures in the same way somebody might paint like kind of, like Airfix kits. I was just painting them just like as an ornament type thing. And the gaming side of things came along much later for me. But yeah, it was always just about relaxation. I've forgotten that. Now instead of kind of having about 10 paints and making it work, you get caught up in this kind of stuff, and I've got brushes coming out my ears and miniatures, like unpainted miniatures everywhere. and sometimes you can kind of lose sight of what it's actually all about. Tony said, I enjoy just learning new stuff about the hobby. I'm not the world's greatest, but I hope that I know stuff and can help people if they need a bit of help. Being part of a community, mate, is part of it as well. And that's one of the reasons I started doing YouTube stuff. Like I say, back in the day, it was more about like, here's something I've done. Like, hope this kind of helps somebody else, or like, you know, I'm showing these people that I only get to chat to online. It was the community side of things that I was looking for, really. Spider-Lord saying, I think I'm far too old, grumpy and set in my ways to be massively influenced by these things, but it's a really good point for people looking in from outside. I think if you kind of look deep, I think you might even still be kind of influenced by it, or you might have ideas about stuff. Like I think, like, we all see how big Games Workshop is, and we can all agree it's huge. But I think we sometimes underestimate how big some of the smaller games are as well. Yes, they're not even close to like 40k and stuff, but like Infinity is a prime example. Malifaux is a prime example. We kind of think of them as these like smaller games that you don't see very often, and yeah, there's an audience for it, but like, you know, like it's like they're harder games to get into because nobody plays it around my way, kind of thing. Like, those are two games that like basically run two decent sized companies. Like, Weird Miniatures only really make Malifaux, and Corvus Belli only really make Infinity. I know they've kind of got like the few like spin-off board games and bits and pieces these days, but for a long time, and those companies have been going over 10 years now, sort of probably 20 years in terms of Corvus Belli, I think, or certainly 15 years. Those games sell enough stuff on a regular basis to support those two companies. And I think we kind of forget those kind of stuff. I think it's very easy to think of all of these other companies as these tiny little cottage industry type things, and they're just not. Like, they're shifting some product. Like, Corvus Belli has a decent amount of staff and production staff and warehousing staff and sort of international sales and stuff like that. They're not like, they might not be Games Workshop in terms of size, but they're not like sort of these tiny little niche company kind of things. Zingbo, good evening, mate. How you doing? VJ says, speaking of interviews, an interview with Ash on a live stream would be cool. Might help him out a bit. That reminds me, how is that sculptor interview shaping up? Just kind of completely forgot about it, mate. The sculptor thing. I'm not sure it would help Ash out, to be fair, mate. I mean, I think Ash is one of them people, if he's got time to do an interview with somebody else, he'd make another video for his own channel. I don't think I'd be helping him, but I'd certainly be open to it. I'm just not sure if I'd be doing him any favours, that's all. Samir says, I still use the same GeoHex grid green flocked styrofoam terrain for Battletech that I got through mail order over 30 years ago. It's held up so well. I think sometimes we kind of we think that like we have to have like new stuff all of the time, and you know, if you have enough bit of fun playing with a friend, you don't always have to have like a brand new battlefield every time you play, kind of thing. Cleo saying, I think I've been trundling along doing my own thing for so long that I say I'm stubbornly fine with what and how I do things, but secretly embarrassed by my lack of skill level, if that makes sense. Do you know what, mate? I'm like that when it comes to like video games and stuff like that. It's like, you know, I've been playing video games since I was about 8 years old. I should be better, but I'm just not. Yeah, Clyde saying, if I don't paint my minis before I play, they sit for years unpainted. The need to paint pushes me to get more painted. However, on the flip side is, do you need to paint them to play with them? Like, how many times are you going to sort of play them games? So there's a flip side to it as well. Matt says, I've got the same with my Moonstone minis. They've yet to be painted, and I don't want to bring them out in their unprimed state. There you go, mate. I think we all go through that stuff. Roderick, hello Roderick, how are you doing? He says, I think any attempt at playing with models that aren't grey plastic or primer is a win. Makes a huge difference. I think it. Do you know what it is, mate? I don't disagree. I think they always generally they always look better to try and put some paint on them. But if it's the case of either I'll never play until I paint them, so therefore I never play, or I get to play the game I find out that I really love this game, and then that inspires me to get some more, get them painted more quickly. Then maybe then, like even then, it's like, you know, there's a reason to get them to the tabletop kind of thing. Ariel Sanchez, good evening, buddy. He says, like GW, primer and speed paints contrast all the way, or I'll drown in plastic without playing. I'll never be a great painter, but I can be a good player. I don't even think you don't even need to consider yourself to not be a great painter, mate. If you are painting them to the standard that you're trying to achieve, then I think that's a great painter. That's still one step up from not getting any paint on them at all, kind of thing. Matt's saying good luck with the op, mate. We have our fingers crossed everything goes well. Thanks, mate. It's one of them things that kind of plays on your mind a bit because it's been delayed once. Like, it got delayed the day before last time. So yeah, I'm dreading this one a little bit. Once I'm actually sitting in that hospital ready to go, then I think then I'll know it's happening, kind of thing. Mark Watson, good evening, Mark. He said, I'm not sure it's changed much, to be fair. Pre-internet, we had the likes of White Dwarf, GMI, I don't know what GMI is, and Dragon at all. I'm not really sure what Dragon and GMI is, mate, but I guess from a White Dwarf perspective, I would like to think that back in the day, White Dwarf was a bit more inspirational rather than like this is how it has to be. Like, for example, the box art, you know, the heavy metal painters, I should say, everyone kind of wanted to paint in that heavy metal style back in the day. And I would like to think that when I started, I felt like the White Dwarf magazines were just showing the product off to the best of their ability, and I think because it was like an official magazine type thing, you almost took it almost as a bit of a sales pitch, or as like this is how it could look, you know, like, oh, like if I won the lottery, like all of my games would look like that. Where I think these days there's almost an expectation that everyone's games look like that, when that's not reality anymore. Peter saying, I never use unpainted stuff in war games, but do in board games just the way I like it. I just like the spectacle. Yeah, I think as long as everybody's doing it their way, kind of thing. It's more about, do you do it that way because you want to, or do you do it that way because you feel the pressure to do it that way? George is saying, it's not crazy to want to play with painted minis. I enjoy the visuals of the game I'm playing, so I rarely play with any unpainted ones. Yeah, like I say, mate, I think it's more about if that's how you feel, and that's how you feel. But do you feel that way because that's your feeling, or do you feel that way because you feel you should do that? And I think some people feel that they should paint their miniatures rather than that they want to paint their miniatures. Vijay says, no drinking for a week before surgery. How do people ever get surgery then? Yeah, there is that, mate, as well. There is that. Samir says, operation, which airbrush you haven't implanted in your forearm? I'm basically just having all of the numbers below 6 removed from my dice. That's what's happening. Let's have a little look. Phil Campbell, good evening, mate. How are you? John Ashley Smith as well, good evening as well. He said he made another live stream somehow. Fascinating topic for discussion, if I may say so. Thank you very much, mate. You've no idea how hard it is to try and come up with sort of ideas to just chat about stuff for a while. I've said this many times, I kind of do this on my Todd kind of thing, and I'm not the best person in the world at asking for help or advice or support, so I end up just kind of like normally it gets to like Sunday and I'm thinking, right, what am I going to do? I used to have like a list of stuff to talk about, but I ran out of that list a long time ago. I've been doing this for like nearly 7 years now, so now I kind of sit on a Sunday with a cup of coffee and go, right, what am I going to talk about tomorrow? So yeah, it's quite tough, mate, to come up with them. So I appreciate that you're enjoying it. Tony's saying that I'll never be able to play games or go to conventions or meetups. I wrecked my head when I was younger. I'm happy with it now, and I like shooting stuff with you and helping where I can. And that's all we want, Tony. We want folks to be like the vast majority of us in this chat tonight. 60 people that sit and chatting now. We're probably unlikely to meet face to face, most of us. But it's nice to feel part of a community. It's nice to feel part of a wider group of folks who all like the same things that we like. And even if we don't all like the same things, we can have a grown-up, like adult conversation and a discussion about why we think different things. Samia says, just tossing this out there, can we all toss a like to our hobby Witcher, Andy? Feel free to throw out a like there, folks. We've got, like I say, we've got 60 people chatting. We've only got 37 likes, so it's just gone to 38 when I said that. So yeah, likes are nice as well. You'd be surprised. Not for me. They don't they don't fill me full of warm fuzzy feelings. It just gives YouTube a bit of a nudge to go, oh look, people actually watch this stuff. Haxan says, as a youngster back in the 1800s, I played war games happily with unpainted minis. Now I rarely play with unpainted figures, and this does sometimes stop me from playing games. That's kind of the point I was trying to make. Fast Panda saying, having something to aspire to isn't a bad thing, but an individual's hobby, time and budget are different. I think getting to that point in the journey is the hobby for many folk. Yeah, I would agree, mate. I think there's nothing wrong with having something to aspire to. We all want to kind of like sort of up our game a little bit. We all want to sort of play more games or paint more minis or maybe paint to a better standard or have a nicer looking table or something like that. But it shouldn't be like a stick to beat ourselves with. It should be an evolving thing or something over time, like something to aspire to, as opposed to something to like almost to be a millstone round your neck. Vijay saying, yeah, Critical Role really have set the level for RPGs pretty high. And I guess there's nothing wrong with that in terms of entertainment, but I think it's had the effect of it's brought a lot of new folks into role-playing games who now think that's what role-playing games are like, kind of thing. John saying, if you want instant gratification now, perhaps miniature wargaming isn't your thing. I don't even think it's about instant gratification. I think it's because so much stuff gets released by Games Workshop and other companies that it is a constantly changing minefield out there, especially when getting into something new for the first time. And I think we almost feel that we need to move fast, otherwise we're going to get left behind. And I don't think it's an instant gratification thing. I think it's more about, like, it's almost like it's like a fire sale. It's like a panic thing. It's this, right, I need to get it done straight away because I need to be able to enjoy the thing I've just bought before the new thing comes out, if you like. And I think that's what's changed a little bit. So I don't think it's necessarily instant gratification. I think it's more about sort of not even fear of missing out. It's almost a fear of being left behind a little bit at times. Matt's saying that Fast Panda there as well, saying, people should be deciding their journey for themselves, but social media is a constant case of having to ignore people telling you how they think they should do it. There is that, mate, as well. Just saying, I do tabletop RPGs with two other storytellers who put on stupid voices too. I'm not sure I ever feel comfortable enough to be doing funny voices in an RPG. Annie, how are you doing, Annie dear? How's things? Bad Squiddo Games there saying, just popping by. What did I miss? I've no idea how much of that you heard, to be fair. Annie said, most of the time I pop in when I'm scrolling, sometimes to fall asleep. Thanks very much. And sometimes to see this is on a hangover for ages. That's the way to do it, isn't it? Clyde says, I try not to think about hobby things too much. Makes me buy things. And therein is one of the problems, mate. Super Pumpkin Man says, as I do see myself as an artist first and foremost, the act of painting itself is enjoyable for me, even if I'm painting for someone else. And as long as I'm happy with the end result, I'm good. Yeah, good way to think about it, mate. Matt says, the fact that an Infinity RPG with multiple supplements is a thing goes to show how well they're doing in their own corner. I agree, mate. And in the same regard, you've also got an RPG for Malifaux as well, called Through the Breach, and which has multiple supplements coming out on almost a monthly or bi-monthly basis as well. So yeah, I think we all think of these games as in like, oh well, nobody around here plays. I never see it at my local club. These are tiny little games, kind of thing, and like they're so niche. It's not even worth me kind of looking at them. And it might be that you don't see people playing them, but I bet loads of people buy them and paint them. and just have fun and just enjoy that side of the hobby. Because there's no way those companies would keep running for as long as they have if nobody bought their stuff. Let me skip ahead a little bit here. Yeah, Bad Squirrel Game saying, good point on those companies having just one game. Shows you don't necessarily need multiple. I think like for a long period of time, most companies only really had one game. So kind of like Weird Games had Malifaux, Privateer Press only had War Machine and Hordes, I guess you could say. But the two were a comparable part of one game. Corvus Belli only really had Infinity. You've got sort of Goblin King Games. They've got Moonstone. For a long sort of patch of time, Mantic only had Kings of War. And I think a lot of companies are kind of like start off like that. And it's certainly enough to keep going. I think what happens is sometimes they see the pound signs and they try to kind of make hay while the sun shines. Or maybe they kind of think that their game hasn't got the longevity that they hoped it would have, and so they're constantly trying to bring in the new thing. Look at Privateer Press recently with the stuff that they've brought online with was it Warcaster, when it looked like Warcaster was going to be their new game and they would kind of walk away from War Machine for a bit, and it didn't really take off, so they've kind of gone back and had another bite of the cherry with War Machine. I think there's a few companies that do like that kind of stuff. Mutton Chop says, if it looks good from 2 feet away, it's good enough for any table. Don't worry about the pros. Life's too short and there ain't enough time to worry when you could be gaming with mates. I think what happens, mate, is and I've said this many times, I've probably said it every single live stream, there's way fewer people playing games than there is people collecting and building models and painting models. Like building and painting, let's assume that they kind of go hand in hand. It's by far the biggest part of our hobby, and the gaming side of it is way smaller in the grand scheme of things. And I think there are a lot of people who think they should be gaming when maybe they should like just think, well, actually the gaming's not for me. I just enjoy painting models. That's my hobby. I think it's just like people think, I've bought this stuff, I should do something with it. That's how I got into gaming, because it's exactly the position I was in at one point. But yeah, everyone should just find their own little happy place kind of thing. Bobby Clark, hello mate, says, I find it more wholesome watching a painter on Instagram doing their personal hobby rather than someone painting their free GW new release they got sent. The latter seems forced and very fake. It's interesting take, mate. Hello, by the way. It's an interesting take because I started doing this channel, basically doing the videos that I wanted to make and the stuff that I enjoyed and was an extension of my hobby, really. And over time, as you've been doing this for like sort of any length of time, you get to, let me just sit up straight because it looks like I'm slouching here. You get to a point where you start thinking, well, I should probably make videos people want to watch, but I don't want to make stuff about, I don't want to make videos about stuff that I don't enjoy. And then what happens is you get into this horrible situation where you start second guessing yourself and you start saying, well, I should do something that's a bit more popular, but I also need to do something that I enjoy as well, because I want to stay honest and true to kind of where I started. But there's no point in me making that video if nobody's going to watch it, kind of thing. And so you second guess yourself and you end up making nothing. And I think that's what happens with the painting stuff, is there are people that got into making painting videos just because they love painting and they just wanted to show something. And then basically they got bigger and they got started getting sent free stuff by Games Workshop. And then the Games Workshop videos do well. And then all they're essentially doing is just basically painting, being a free painting service for Games Workshop now, to kind of just to show off their miniatures kind of thing. And the people like you see on Instagram who are just painting the kind of the things that they love, they're just sharing their hobby. Like they're just sharing the things that they kind of that they're passionate about. And what the shame is that, and the worry is that they get bigger and then start chasing the views and all that kind of stuff. It's a horrible vicious circle. Annie's saying, we painted the Walking Dead minis and have been slowly upgrading the terrain as we go along, which has been nice to see. Pretty much a full painted board's worth now. That's nice. I quite like that, mate. And it's one of those things where it's not the latest game. It's not even something where you can go out and buy like mountains of new stuff for it. It's probably been sitting there unpainted for some time, and it's just a nice little kind of project. And it's nice that it's probably something that you're doing together as well with Andy, and that like a nice little there's something to like aim for if you like. I think that's kind of what I'm missing. I don't really have something to aim for at the moment. John saying, geez, I hope your medical issue isn't serious. Good luck, buddy. Nothing too bad, mate. It's just something I've got a procedure I've got to have done, and it's going to be a bit of a shitty recovery from what I understand, and hopefully I'll kind of like within a couple of weeks I'll be back to kind of, I should be somewhere near my normal self again. Let's have a little look down here. Ed saying Dragon was TSR's house magazine. GMI was an independent RPG mostly magazine. I guess that's why I'm not familiar with them. I guess is that where Dragon Con comes from? Is that something to do with that? Matt says White Dwarf used to be so much more punk when it came to DIY projects. It was before my days, I think, but I do remember people saying they used to do like kind of like scratch building stuff in them. When I used to buy it, it was more of a kind of like a sales catalogue type thing that you used to pay for. Yeah, showing you how to turn a shampoo bottle into a grav tank. Yeah. Samir saying old school White Dwarf magazines were hobby gold. I used to be giddy for the monthly issues. So much hobby inspiration when the boards were so basic. Yeah, because I guess they were just hobbyists back then. Like, it wasn't a full-time job to be like a terrain builder back then kind of thing. Peter says the big question is the context telling you this is what it has to be, or are other people telling you the way from the content is the way it has to be? And I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get at really, is does the stuff you see online, does it reinforce like a context that this is how things should be, therefore that's what you have to achieve? Or do you just see it as kind of, well, I'm going to do my own thing regardless, but it's nice to see what everybody else does kind of thing? Derek Hodge, good evening, Derek. He's saying, just do it your way. I think, Derek, that whilst I agree with you, I think it's easy to say. I think sometimes we all look for inspiration, we all look for advice, we all look for ways to do stuff. We all want to be part of a bigger community, or we want to be we want to surround ourselves with folks who like what we like. And sometimes you can be a bit of peer pressure sometimes, and sometimes a little bit of like silo mentality sometimes as well, and you can start to think that that's the way that things should be done. And he's saying, I feel a fun kit bash element is definitely being put aside with GW for the sell coffee stirrers for the window. Yeah, I've never really been one for kit bashing and stuff, and I do wonder if that's because I didn't grow up in the hobby when kit bashing was the way to get stuff. I've grown up in the like Games Workshop makes amazing plastic terrain, just go and buy big castles and tanks and like all that kind of stuff. Like I didn't get into the hobby in the era of kit bashing really. AMC says, I'm always scared they will look okay and used to have pressure to match the box art. Now I think painting adds to the enjoyment and try not to worry as much. Plus contrast helps a lot. I think Games Workshop should be at least patted on the back sometimes for the fact that they do try to ease the entry point, and they do like their battle ready kind of paint schemes and things like that. But then I think by the same stretch, like it's they don't send their product out generally to people who just paint to that level to show you like how other people do it. They send their product out to people who are fantastic painters, and I get that they want to show it off to its best ability, but then maybe it'd be nice to send to somebody who's a bit more Joe average, and then you can kind of like say, well, and here's how it looks, how 90% of people are going to paint it kind of thing. Let's have a scroll down a little bit. Matt saying, honestly, pre-internet, it sucked being a nerd or a geek. The internet's done so much to normalise geek culture and allow us to find out various tribes. It's a lot less lonely in that respect. completely 100% agree, mate. I would not disagree with that at all. And I think, like with anything, with every good thing, there's a flip side and there's a downside kind of thing. And I think the downside is it can sometimes create a groupthink type thing as well. John saying, don't change what you're doing at BlackJack Legacy. You're just a regular guy, which is part of your appeal. It's why I like your channel so much and return. I really do appreciate that, mate. And it's kind of like what I've always wanted to try and sort of stay true to the hobby side of things and the gaming for fun and not necessarily the tournament side of things. Like, yes, I play in tournaments, or I have played in tournaments, but I'm never in there competing. I'm there to have a few beers. I'm there to meet friends. I'm there to play with new people. That kind of stuff. And I always want the channel to be an extension of that. I always want it to just be like, you know, like normal dude, like sort of is in this hobby as well kind of thing. But it's really hard to not get sidetracked and sometimes want to chase like more popularist type stuff. And like, it's nice when a video does well, and it's not so nice when a video doesn't do well. And I think you can, if you think of it as a business, if the success of your business is you're only as good as the last thing you sold kind of thing, that's kind of what it's like making videos on YouTube and stuff like that. And I guess I'm just having a bit of self-reflection, and I need to assess what's the direction, I suppose. Like, I'm never going to change. I'm not suddenly going to start to become like sort of corporate, like sort of, this is how you kind of paint your miniatures kind of thing. Like, that's never going to be me. But I don't feel like there's a space anymore for just doing basic painting tutorials like I used to do in the past. I don't think there's a space anymore for doing like kind of sort of, this is how to play this game kind of thing, because there's like there are people with big studios with lots and lots of people being paid lots and lots of money by companies to make all those kind of videos now, and it feels like your average hobby content type stuff for your average hobby person just doesn't work anymore. And I think that's what I need to kind of like look at as well. Peter saying, as an aside, having opposing factions in different coloured plastic takes away a big hurdle for playing with unpainted armies. You know what, mate? The amount of times I've thought, what I should probably do is just like spray prime one team red and spray prime one team blue and just and get them on the table. You know, a bit of dry brush, a bit of wash, and just see what happens, kind of thing. But I always think like, well, no, you'll not be happy with that. You'll not be happy with that. RG says, I prefer playing with painted minis, but just as happy to play with unpainted. But as I said earlier, painted minis feel so much better. I think there's a sense of pride in, once you've finished painting your minis, getting them on the tabletop and playing with them. I 100% agree with that. Tony says, never seen Critical Role. I just saw the forward timestamp and hit the close button. Yeah, I'm not really one for watching kind of online role-playing game type stuff. Maybe I'd be better off listening to them as a podcast, to be fair. Annie said, in the past we'd only see our mates painting, so compared to a few peers, now we see thousands, which include mega pros, so the field of comparison is way bigger. So easy to be dismayed. Yeah, I agree with that one. Not that social media is bad, but we just have to override our animal brain. 100% on that one. Let me jump forward a little bit here. John says, didn't Corvus Belli get started as a historical wargaming company making primarily 15mm ancients and Imperial Rome? Not that I'm familiar with, mate. They might have done, but for me, I've only ever known them as the Infinity Company, but God knows, mate. Cleo says, I miss my hamsters. We had one that fell out of a 6th floor window, lived feral for a month, and then we found him again. Oh my God. Did he come back with like tattoos and stuff and a Mohican? Some here saying posture. Yeah, it's because I was slouching down in my chair, wasn't I? Let me skip ahead a little bit further and try and catch up with some of this chat. Wayne Hayward says, let me just, I think I've jumped too far ahead there. Samir saying, well said, with the internet, it's not as lonely, but the content can be overwhelming and discouraging if you're not careful. Yes. Matt says, the pigs have hijacked the conversation. And he's saying, we started playtesting pigs versus ghouls on Sunday. It's so cute. Doesn't sound cute. The pigs might be cute, the ghouls not so much. Spiderlord says, I do think it's a very interesting angle on how being a content creator skews your hobby perspective too. I think it definitely does, mate. I think it definitely does, because I would say that I think I've lost the crossover point of where this is hobby and this is work. I've completely lost that now. So what used to happen before was I had a space in the house where I used to paint, and that was, I only ever painted there as hobby stuff. And then I had the garage where I filmed all my videos and stuff like that, and I have painting area in there. So anything I was doing for work, I would do in the garage, and at the end of the day, I'd walk out and lock the door and come in the house. And if I sat and painted inside, then that was my kind of hobby stuff. But since, I forget when I did this room now, but since bringing everything inside to do my live streams and stuff, because in reality, I need to do live streams indoors because little boy's in bed, my wife's away, that kind of stuff. It just doesn't work at being in the garage for that kind of stuff. Once I brought all of this inside, and also because when I'm working during the day in the garage or the studio type space, there's no daylight. It's like it's artificial light. It's like walking into a black box and putting the lights on, and there's no air, like there's no like windows to open. There's no daylight coming in, and it's not. And when you're sitting on your own all day, every day, it can kind of get you down. It plays with your mental health. So that was another reason why I brought stuff indoors, and there's a nice window there in this room upstairs, and I can get some daylight, and I can open the doors and sort of get some airflow, and I can speak to people. It's like my wife has got an office next door, so when she's working from home, she's working in the next room, and we can kind of like chat, and she brings me a cuppa and that kind of stuff. So there's reasons why it worked, but it definitely feels now if I sit down on a night to paint, I feel like I'm sitting at work again, and that's definitely kind of something I think skewed my opinions. And I'm definitely the point where I'm just like I used to try to have stuff that was just hobby that I didn't talk about on videos, and that's what I was doing with my Marvel Crisis Protocol stuff, really. But what I found was I want to play other games because I want to play games to be able to talk about them online, but then I need to be able to paint stuff, and I need to be able to kind of like build stuff, and like getting people to play during the day isn't easy because that's like when people are at work kind of stuff. So it's all those things anyway. And long story short, yes, it definitely affects and skews your perspective. John saying, I do miss the variety of hobby and gaming publications there once was. It was the way you found out what's new or coming out soon. I think just magazines in general, mate, have had their day a little bit. And I think that's the reason why. I mean, even White Dwarf, to be fair, I think it's amazing it's still going. They obviously sell enough that it's worthwhile. But I think it's almost like people subscribe to it almost through sort of force of habit sometimes now. Win says, I agree, the more achievable content has got less. I used to watch painting videos all the time and struggle to find them now. Yeah. Bobby says, I genuinely enjoy your channel and you. I work in the hobby mostly on my own like yourself. It's interesting to hear how you cope and overcome obstacles. I like your positivity. You know what, mate? I think generally, I think I'm like my natural inner person, if you like. I'm generally a very positive person. I like to see the best in situations. I tend not to focus on the negative. I try and sort of focus on the positive. And I think that's generally how I am. But I'll be honest, being like working on my own and being on my own a lot, it's easy to get out of that mindset. And you just got to ask my wife. I'm not always the happiest person in the world, kind of thing. You know, I can be a grumpy bastard at times. I can be down in the dumps and being like kind of like I say, working in the garage, in the black box, in the gulag, all day, every day, not really getting in games, not seeing people, not getting out. It's it can be a bit demoralising as well, and so it's hard to always be positive about stuff. But I think generally, like when I'm in a good frame of mind, when I'm in a good mood, I'm always positive about stuff. But thank you very much for the nice comments, mate. And as for your painting, mate, I don't see your painting mind as anything but inspirational. I just think the level of stuff that you put out and the volume of stuff that you manage to paint, and as we're talking like about that kind of stuff, I mean, it's your job. So you're just somebody that does a really, really good job at what you do. I don't see it as kind of like I don't see it as off-putting, if you like. I just see it as like if I put in as much effort into painting as you do, and I paint it as often as you do, like I'd love to be able to achieve something like you do, and that's what I see as inspirational kind of thing. Annie's saying we like you, Andy, because you keep it real. Do you know what it is though, Annie? Sometimes there's keeping it real, and then there's sometimes being a bit stubborn, and not like when the opportunities are staring you in the face to be a bigger channel, to get more views, to be more successful in what you do. Sometimes I just think that am I stupid for not jumping on them bandwagons and just going along? Like I know that clickbait works. I know that controversial topics work. I know that covering Games Workshop works. Am I sort of doing myself a disservice by not even entertaining that kind of stuff, or am I stubbornly kind of sticking to my guns and trying to keep it real kind of thing? I don't know. Matt says it's when you walk outside and hiss at the fresh air and the sunlight that you have to worry. It's been like that at times, mate, I'll be honest. John's saying we buy all these extra models like people buy books, thinking that they're buying the time to read them. I have enough to build and paint for 2 lifetimes. To be honest, people who buy board games are exactly the same, but I think even that has become a bit of a thing where it's influenced by online. Like years ago, people didn't have like 25 Kallax units full of board games. Like it's almost become a bit of a competition of look how many board games I've got that I will never ever play kind of thing. So I think it's the same. And you see, I need to do the sleep now. Glad I popped in. Quality road and chat. Just need a timeshare prior between us. Nice one. Take care, Annie. Thanks for popping in. Spider-Lord says, I think your brand is authenticity and positivity without being a shill. It's a good mix. It's a good mix, mate, but it doesn't pay the bills. Maybe I need to shill a bit more. Maybe I need to be a bit more negative at times. Maybe that way that I'll be able to pay the bills. Jess says, when you're getting over your up, if you need to get out for a bit, give us a shout. I've got a quiet few weeks ahead, I think. Thank you, mate. I definitely 100% will do. Like I say, I think basically I've been advised it's gonna be a bit of a awkward couple of weeks afterwards. It's gonna be a bit painful. I won't be able to like drive the car or anything like that. So I will hopefully within a couple of weeks. What she said was essentially most people take a couple of weeks off work afterwards because they can't really get about. So we'll see, mate. I should be all right though. Matt's saying to John there, FOMO is a bugger to deal with mental health issues and ADHD. I generally have to be careful with that side of things. Yeah, I can imagine, mate. It's FOMO is something I think I've managed to go through and come out the other side, and now FOMO isn't something I really I don't really feel like I'm missing out on anything when it comes to tabletop stuff these days. I used to. There was a period of time where I felt like I had to have everything, and if I didn't have it, then I wasn't talking about it, and I wasn't a good content creator because I wasn't talking about the latest stuff, and there wasn't a period of time where I was a bit like that. These days I'm kind of over it now, but then it does also mean that sometimes I don't get caught up in the hype with everybody else, and it's nice to do that sometimes. Cleo says I'm in danger of getting addicted to the board games. People added paintable minis to board games, and now I'm doomed. Jess says Andy shills for bacon. I would like to do a nice little paid segment for bacon, mate. That would be nice. Bobby says, oh, thanks, Andy. I think we both feel awkward when we get praised. I feel a meet up one day will do us both some good. 100%, mate. We should definitely get together and have a coffee, mate. And you can show me how to paint, mate, and I'll play a game with you. Or I'll put the camera on you or something like that. I feel massively awkward in taking any kind of praise. How I deal with praise is essentially if somebody says something nice about what I do, and I believe that, then I also have to take when somebody says something not very nice, and I have to believe that as well. Because if you only sort of like buy into the good stuff, I think it's a bit egotistical. So I struggle with kind of taking praise, because then I feel like if I accept the praise, I have to accept the criticism as well. And sometimes the criticism in this line of work isn't very nice. And it can get quite personal, and it can get quite nasty at times. So I think I kind of live life in the middle a little bit, and I try not to accept the praise in the same way. I try not to kind of like listen to the negative stuff. Tizzy Brain Drain says, does that mean we'll be missing videos from you while you recover? I think I'm going to be alright, mate, for to do like live streams and stuff, because essentially I will have my operation on Thursday, so then the following Monday I'll have had like at least the weekend, I'll have had 3 days to kind of get over the worst of it. As long as I can kind of, I'll still be able to talk, as long as I can look down a camera and kind of keep going, I'll be fine. I think essentially I'm not going to be getting around much, and I'm not going to be I won't be driving or anything like that. So I think it's as long as I can kind of sit or stand for a couple of hours, live streams will be fine, mate. So yeah, don't worry about those. VG says, I can vouch for having a Kallax full of board games. That's so I actually have gotten most of them played, mostly solo, but at least I get enjoyment from that. Yeah, that's the difference, mate. I think a lot of people just buy board games like we buy miniatures kind of thing, and they basically put them on the shelf and then they never see the light of day again. Samia says, we do a weekly family board game night, and it's been so much fun to watch the kids grow from innocent younglings learning board games to conniving and strategically focused opponents. Yeah. The kids are slowly getting hooked on painting up board game minis as well. The portal to Tabletop has been opened. Nice one. Cleo saying, YouTube channels about solo board games are drawing me in. Interesting, mate. VG says, trying to get family board game night happening, but the wife isn't that into them. The 7-year-old can't really play many of the things I'm interested in. It's tough, mate, when they're at a certain age. Like, my little lad is getting to the age now where he likes board games, but he's got a relatively short attention span at the minute for like anything too like taxing. But he likes video games, and we're starting to find the odd video game we can play together. So we've started playing Fortnite online together. Like, he's in his bedroom with a PlayStation, and I'm kind of in my room with my PlayStation, and we get to play like online games together, and that's been like a complete, pardon the pun, it's been a real game changer in us like spending time doing something together like that. And I think as he gets a little bit older, and he's interested in like painting minis and stuff, and he's interested in playing like sort of more grown up board games, if you like. But he's only 6, like he's 7 next month. He's not quite there yet. But I think give it another year or so, and a couple of years, like I think that'll be like that'll be the difference. So I think sometimes you just got to wait it out, mate. I think, and wait till it happens. Excuse me. Where were we up to there? Spylo saying, oddly enough, I just don't play solo. Me and my girlfriend do our best to make dent in the backlog. Yeah, I think if you've got like a regular gaming partner, be it a friend or a partner like a husband or a girlfriend or a wife or whatever, or a boyfriend, then I think you can make a bit of a dent in board gaming if you're both of the same kind of like, we both love games kind of thing. Not everybody is, unfortunately. Samir says, all things come with good and bad. Andy, your content is positively magical allure, and I certainly appreciate that you come from a place of joy for the hobby. I think it's just like, sometimes I feel like I'm kind of like sort of barking up the wrong tree, really. Like, to keep kind of reaffirming that the hobby is about enjoyment. It's about having fun. It's about having fun on the journey, not the destination kind of thing. Like painting the miniature should be a fun process. Like you should get enjoyment from the art of painting and the act of painting, rather than the actual fact that this is something I have to do that kind of thing. You don't have to paint your miniatures if you just want to play the game. Like, you know, like I keep feeling like I'm barking up the wrong tree with that kind of stuff sometimes. It's all the kind of nice fluffy positive stuff, but do people really want to hear it? Let's have a little look here. Jess is saying, will they make you wear a cone of shame like a card dog? They will, mate, but it's got nothing to do with the operation. I just shame, mate. It's to stop me putting cakes in my mouth while I'm stuck at home. Matt says, just don't push yourself, Andy. If you don't feel like doing it, don't do it. Can't have you falling off your chair midstream. We haven't got a long enough stick to poke you back away again. No, I think I should be fine, mate. I think I should be fine. And VJ says 2 weeks of not having to do anything. Geez, sounds like heaven. Do you know, it's not 2 weeks of not doing anything. I think it's basically just 2 weeks of kind of taking it easy with the recovery kind of thing. And I can't drive for a period of time, so I won't be going anywhere kind of thing. And I think I'll be all right kind of walking and moving around, but not for any kind of long periods of time, I think. So yeah, what I might have to do is have a 2-camera setup where I've got the sitting down version here and a second camera if I need to stand for a bit kind of thing, and just keep sort of switching between the two. Let's have a little look here. Tizzy Brindrin saying, cool, sounds like your recovery will not be too bad. I'm glad to hear. I think it's just painful, mate, as opposed to kind of like it's as opposed to sort of anything sort of too nasty or too long or technical kind of thing. I think it's just painful for a while. Samir saying, check out Catan Jr. and the kids version of Carcassonne. I'm sure your son will pick them up quickly and have loads of fun. I always started at 5 and 8 with these and learned so quickly. We've been playing things like he quite likes Cluedo. We've been playing Cluedo game. He plays like Hive. He quite likes Hive, although he hasn't got the necessarily the tactics to it. He's just started playing chess and drafts or checkers, so he quite likes those games. So he's starting to kind of like to play board games. He's got other stuff I've bought him as well, but they're generally like it's hard because when there's such a big age difference, like you're essentially either like letting them win, like for example, or they're just complete like random stuff like snakes and ladders kind of thing, where he's not really learning any like strategy or any thought process. He's just rolling the dice and moving a counter. So he's just starting to kind of like he likes playing Guess Who, where you flick down all the different faces and stuff like that. So he's kind of playing like kids games at the minute, but he's enjoying the act of playing board games, which I think is the most important bit. Ed's saying, my first Castle Panic is great. Oh, my first Castle Panic. I'll have to have a look at that one, mate. Cleo says, I used to be very interested in board game design too, as in design a game that basically I am the only person who'd be into it. There's nothing wrong with that, mate. Nothing wrong. Let's have a look. Yeah, Tisty Brindrin saying, second what Matt said about pushing yourself. Thank you, mate. Yeah, I'll be all right. And Cleo saying, don't skip whatever pain management the doctor gives you. Yeah, God knows what they're going to give me, mate. I'm sure I'll find all that out afterwards. Let me scroll down a little bit here. VJ is saying, in his opinion, the Dice Tower is hands down the best board gaming channel on YouTube. There are some that focus more on solo games, but the quality of the Dice Tower content is just so far above everyone else. I think they're kind of seen as the kind of the leading light or something when it comes to board game type stuff. I don't really watch their content, if I'm honest. I think they almost produce so much content that you could only watch them and nobody else if you're really into board games that much. For me, board games, there's so many different kinds of board games, in the same way there's so many different kinds of miniatures games. I feel like that's another kind of thing where it's a case of like constantly trying to keep up with the latest hotness. And I think we sometimes forget that actually if you find a game that you like, maybe just play that for a while before you kind of like chase the next ones. And I guess in that respect, the Dice Tower has probably done to board gamers what I've just been talking about tonight. They've essentially force-fed them. These are all new games that are out, and this is the latest one. You must try this one, and don't play this one. This one's terrible. And I guess in the past, what you'd do is you would just go to the board game store and you would pick something that you thought looked pretty cool, kind of thing, that was right up your street, or maybe you would try something out or take a recommendation from someone in the store. Where I think these days it's like there are so many games released on a weekly basis, and I think sometimes this is why people end up with like 5 Kallaxes full of board games. Matt says, shut up and sit down is the gold bar for entertaining board game reviews. I'd agree with that, mate. Yeah, to be fair. They're definitely more entertaining, and I would suggest more in-depth. But then also do far, far less stuff as well. Mark's saying Looney Castle or Terror in Meeple City are great to play. I'll have to check those ones out, mate. I'm not familiar with them. And VJ says, yeah, my first Castle Panic is great. We got it for Declan a while back, and he likes it when we get it to the table. Ah, nice, mate. I'll have to check that one out then. And Declan loves Monza as well. I'll have to check that one. John says, I've just woken up, been burning the candle at both ends recently and crashed today, so I'll have to catch up later. I was watching one of your Monday live streams from the start of the pandemic. Top 20 solo. Yes, mate. I thought that was a very apt one at the start of the pandemic. I think it was way back in like March 2020. That was one of those streams. Somebody has just seen a Goose Gob Memoir 44 from the local used bookshop this morning. Came very high recommended. I've never played it actually, but I only ever heard good things about it. Cleo says, it seems like a lot of people play a board game once and consider it done. I would agree with that as well, to be fair. And I think it's this constant need of like, but there's so much more new stuff coming out that I'm being told is fantastic, and as a must player, I've got to keep moving on. And a prime example would be the amount of people that buy Kickstarter stuff, get like 5 expansions for it in a huge big box when it arrives, and never ever get past that kind of initial tutorial game and never really play it again. I think it's Kickstarter's got a lot to answer for when it comes to the state of the board gaming industry. But I think like social media and YouTube channels and stuff like that also have a hand in it as well. And it's no bad thing. All they're doing is providing information for people to say these are all the good stuff that's out there and this is our review kind of thing. But like, I guess the way you could think about it is like, how many new films come out every week at the cinema? Probably maybe 1 or 2. Like, can you imagine if like 20 new films came out or 30 films came out every single week, and everybody was going, right, try this one, try this one, try this one. VJ says, Dice Tower do put out a lot, but I tend to just skip the videos of stuff I know I won't be interested in, like heavy Euro games. Yeah, I guess I'm maybe just not knowledgeable enough to know which ones are the games that I will be skipping, so I tend not to watch most of it, to be fair. And Samir saying Terror in Meeple City is fantastic. It involves dexterity and destroying the buildings on the board. We quite like we play was it Rhino Hero or Hero Rhino Hero, I think it's called. We play that quite a bit. That's kind of cool. Matt says, yeah, I find the sheer amount that Dice Tower puts out is somewhat off-putting, but then I have an attention span of a gnat, and I like my info in bite-sized pieces. John said, I do like the Dice Tower, but you need to look at the bias of the reviews. Yeah, I noticed Dan Hughes was in the chat. Did I miss Dan earlier on? Oh, if I missed Dan, I apologise. Nice to see you, Dan, if you were in. Sorry, Dan was in the chat for the other one you were watching, sorry. And he says, I love Dan's approach and the way him and Mike play off each other. Yeah, I mean, I've not seen how much Dan's been on Dice Tower stuff recently, but but Dan and I share kind of like a lot of opinions when it comes to like miniature games and that kind of stuff. And I've been on his podcast before as well, on them Sporadically Bored, which if you're into board games, I highly recommend as well, that Dan and Mike do. But I think bias of reviewers, I guess, is like anything. Anybody, if you find someone that you either strongly agree or strongly disagree with, generally they're not a bad person to follow. Even if you disagree with them, if you think every game they love I hate and every game I hate they love, then maybe that's a good shout as to what you should be watching. Sorry, I'm getting distracted here because it's saying that there's a bit of a not enough. YouTube's not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. I'm wondering what. I wonder if it's just a bit of a blip in the internet or something. It's generally pretty good here, but Matt says at some point someone's going to point out that this is all the mechanisms by which capitalism gets us to part with our hard-earned monies. Exactly, mate, yeah. Clear says, I saw a review of 3 Second Try that seemed like it could be adapted for a lot of fun with kiddies. You have 3 seconds to do as many of something as you can. Jump and name animals. We have been playing Cuphead, the dice rolling game, which is a massive fan of Cuphead, the video game, and so I bought him the Cuphead dice rolling game a while ago, and that is definitely like, it's not necessarily a skill based thing. You have a time limit and you're trying to roll dice, and basically kind of when you get the right symbols, you put them on your card as quickly as you can. So it's definitely it's a game that I have no advantage being older than him kind of thing. The only thing we do is, because it's quite a lot of pressure, the time limit, I tend to give him a bit of a longer time limit just to take some of the pressure off. Otherwise it becomes very, very frantic. Yeah, RG saying with board games I've taken to trying to understand what is it going to replace that I already have. It's helped with FOMO. Yeah, it's funny, we don't really think about that when it comes to miniatures games, do we? Matt's saying it's the same argument for most tabletop games. As long as you're playing with friends, you can sub in anything you like for minis if you don't own. Yeah, exactly, mate. Matt says it's just that having the official minis feels and looks nice when it's on the table. I also agree with that as well. VG saying I play most of my games in binges. Like, I've recently binged Maximum Apocalypse, played like 8 games in a week, and it's back on the shelf now, but I have plans to play multiplayer tomorrow. I think it's funny is that I think a lot of people have like games nights, and they will generally play like 3 or 4 games in one night, play 3 or 4 different games. There's obviously exceptions to that, where you get games that are like campaign games, where you are like Frosthaven kind of thing, Gloomhaven, that kind of stuff, where you're playing like through a storyline. But generally, I think most people kind of like, it's almost a case of one and done type things. We have a little look further down here as well. Samia's saying, hoping to get the kids into Axis and Allies and Shogun. I still have my original copies from the mid-80s. Talk about longevity. And he said, I think Axis and Allies was my gateway to miniature games. 40 years on and still not a single one from that game painted. Yeah. There's no reason why you have to paint them here, to be fair, is there? Speaking of games, actually, let me just grab something. I was just sent this in the post from Weird Games, which is Vagrant Song Encore, which is their talking about expansions of games that you never play. Vagrant Song expansion. So this is basically an expansion to the original Vagrant Song, which I already have and have played through as well before. Me and my wife played that actually, and I must admit, we basically did play it like a campaign where you play through the story. And this is basically this is coming to Kickstarter very soon, but they've sent me a copy to have a look at. So I'm looking forward to getting this to the table and having a look. So especially when I'm kind of post operation kind of thing, and I'm not getting out and about so much, I might get some of these to the table on an evening and stuff like that. So Samir saying, cool box cover, never heard of this game. and VGC and Vagrant Song was rated very highly by Dice Tower. It is a very, very good game. I mentioned it on one of my live streams and stuff, and I was showing it off. I did an interview with Kyle Rowan, who's the creator of the original Vagrant Song as well. So feel free to go and check that one out. On my channel, it tells you a bit more about Vagrant Song as well. But it's a fantastic game. Really, really nice art style, which I think you can kind of see some of the art style from the edge of the box there as well. Let me just get it so the light's not shining there. You can kind of see that rubber hose kind of art style. The idea is these kind of like hobos on a train, and it's full of ghosts and stuff like that. And it's a really good like narrative story. Anyway, they're releasing an expansion for this as well, so it's something I'll be taking a look at over the next couple of weeks, and then hopefully I'll be able to tell you all about it. Let's have a little look. So me saying, I guess I'm heading over to Dice Tower after the stream to learn about this one. Yeah, let me find you the I'll find you the link to the interview I did with Kyle, and I'll pop a link to it in the here it is. Share. Where the heck did you just get a link? There it is. So there's a link to the video that I did with Kyle, who's the creator of Vagrant Song, where he talks about the game, he talks about creating it, talks about the inspiration, that kind of stuff as well. And yeah, it's really, really good. Greg says, Greg Cherry, good evening, Greg. How are you doing? Says, I get asked all the time to commission paint. Don't want my hobby to be my job. I think it depends. If you enjoy painting, you could always do it like a little bit as a little bit of hobby money kind of thing, if you like. But I think some people are cut out to do it as a commission painter and be a full-time commission painter. Some people, I think, would definitely just get burned out from it. Cleo says, someday I too shall create a game in a shiny box. Mark my words, but don't set a deadline on it. I tell you what, the quality of the original Vagrant Song, I can't really talk about the quality of this, because I mean, for all this is fantastic quality, this is actually a prototype type thing, because the game isn't in full production yet. But the quality of the original Vagrant Song, I would say it's probably one of the highest quality board games I think I've ever had. Samir says, I did commission painting one time and it was such a slog, then it never happened again. I flit from project to project too much to be focused commission painter. Yeah, definitely. Well, folks, we are coming up to 11 o'clock now. I think we've kind of run the course for this evening. And so I think we'll call it there. So thank you very much for everyone that's come in. Thank you again to all of my Patreons, to the folks that have supported me tonight as well with the super chats. It very, very much is appreciated, and it certainly helps to kind of keep the lights on and keep me being able to do this. I'll be in and around the Discord and around Facebook and stuff for the rest of this week. I am still kind of looking after my little one while he's off school. This is his last week off school. He's back to school next week. So then we can, at the week I am kind of recovering from my operation. But hopefully we should start to get back to kind of normal with videos and things like that. And yeah, I'll just have a wonderful week, everyone. Don't forget to kind of interact in the Discord, and if you're in there, and in the Facebook group, show me what you've been painting and stuff. And don't forget to get your submissions in for the August Painting Challenge in time for next Monday. Thank you, everyone, for the kind wishes as well. Thank you, Cleo, as well, for the super chat there at the end. I really, really do appreciate that. And take care, everyone, and I will see you next Monday. Bye, folks.